Hey guys, Lake St. Clair smallmouth guide Joe Bauer here. Today I'm going to be breaking down on how I fish hair jigs throughout the year to catch Great Lakes smallmouth bass. I was first introduced to fishing hair jigs when I drew Josh Kraft in a BFL on the Detroit River. We went up to St. Clair and we were fishing isolated rock piles relatively shallow, and I think every fish that he weighed that day he caught on a hair jig, and really broadened my perspective and really showed me that it's a really good technique to catch shallow smallmouth. And we were post spawn, so I knew that we would be able to catch them throughout the rest of the summer. And Josh really told me how when it's cold and the water's really cold, it's a really good technique to catch them, especially early and late in the year. So over the last 3 years I've been fishing a lot of hair and put my own twists when I'm tying them out myself, and it's a really good technique for catching smallmouth throughout the entire year. There's predominantly two different types of hair that I'm going to fish on a hair jig. Early in the year, pre-spawn, I'm going to fish bucktail. This is a little bit more dense hair, and honestly when I'm fishing pre-spawn fish, I'm power fishing, and you wouldn't think of a hair jig for the most part being a power fishing bait, but I can really get those finesse bites and the really aggressive fish to attack a hair jig when that water's cold. And the bucktail just gives a little bit more meat to the jig, so when I'm swimming that around these isolated boulders and rock piles, it really gives them a big target when they're typically feeding up to get ready for that spawn. Once we get past the spawn and we're into those bug hatches and post-spawn fish, I'm going to switch up to a marabou jig. It's a lot fluffier, the hair is a lot more fine, and when it gets wet it really compacts down. There's a couple different tricks that you can do. You can put a little piece of plastic on the shank of your hook to make it get a little bit bigger profile. But honestly, I'm only going to do that if I need the extra weight to make a cast if it gets windy. Because I'm going to be fishing these hair jigs relatively shallow. There's not really any situation where I'm going to be fishing them out deep, say 22 to 23 foot of water. But if I've got those fish up shallow, say anything less than 12 foot, a hair jig can really come into play, especially if you're fishing around those dark spots and isolated boulders, and even in the current. That marabou hair jig can really catch them in the summertime when they've seen just about every other bait known to man. When I'm choosing what color hair jig to throw, I'm going to look at the water and see what the clarity looks like. If I've got pretty clear water and I can see the bottom, I'm going to be fishing more of an olive or a natural color. If I've got pretty dark water or a little bit of stain to it, I'm going to fish a black. Now this black's going to put off a little bit more of a silhouette, and the fish are going to be able to key in on it a little bit more as opposed to this olive, which will actually kind of blend in with the water. If I have dirty water, I've also caught them really good on white. The silhouette on those just kind of gives a little bit bigger profile, and the shad get really bleached when we have dirty water. So I think that white hair jig really represents those, say, 3 to 4 inch shad that smallies will gorge up on if they're given the opportunity. When you're getting set up to fish a hair jig, the most important part of your entire setup, in my opinion, is your main line. I use 10-pound Seagar Smackdown braid. This has the lowest diameter line that I could find, and it's still really strong. I'm going to tie up an 8-pound Tatsu fluorocarbon leader on top of that, and this line has such a small profile that it goes through the guides in your rod really well. One of the most important parts about fishing a hair jig is getting it out as far away as possible from the boat. These are really light. I mean, a really heavy hair jig is 1/4 of an ounce. So if you're fishing an 1/8 ounce or even a 1/16 ounce and that wind is blowing at all a little bit, you're really going to have to get that line out away from the boat. And with this 10-pound Smackdown braid, you can really make long casts. So other than your line, which I believe is the biggest component to fishing a hair jig, the next one is going to be your rod that you choose. This one is a 7/6 medium light St. Croix Legend Extreme. This rod is awesome for making long casts with these light hair jigs. It's got that extra length so you can really pony up and throw it out there. And there's a lot of strength back here in the core of the rod, and it really tapers down nicely to a really fast tip. So you're going to be able to feel those bites with it, and you're going to be able to make a long cast and drive that hook into their mouth. These smallmouth have relatively hard mouths pretty much the whole year because they eat so many crayfish out there. So having an ultra sharp hook is extremely important, and then having a rod that you're not going to be snapping off leaders with is another huge component to having success on the Great Lakes for smallmouth. The last thing that you're definitely going to want to make sure you're doing while you're fishing hair jigs for smallies is having a very high quality hair jig. Now if you're going to tie these yourself, you need to be your own biggest critic. And if those hair jigs don't look perfect, they aren't going to work. I've tied up hundreds of these jigs, and until I got them really dialed in, they didn't work. As soon as I got them so that they were perfect in my opinion, I caught a lot of fish on them. One great place to get some hair jigs is from Josh Craft. He sells them. His business name is Angler Craft. You can look him up on Facebook and Instagram. His handle is the Hair Jig Kid. Check him out if you really want some high quality hair jigs. He'll get you set up. If you have any questions about fishing hair jigs on the Great Lakes, make sure you throw them down in the comments below or send me a DM and I'll be glad to answer them. Thank you guys for watching. Hope to see you out on the water soon.